Hello and welcome back to Beyond Mobility, AMF-Bruns Insights. Today's episode is going to be a little different. It's just me. I travel full-time for work and take over 70 flights a year as a wheelchair user. And travel has become such a big part of my professional life, I wanted to share that with you guys and what it really looks like. The good, the hard, and everything in between. So let's jump right in. I did not travel for a good chunk of time after I was injured. I waited almost 10 years before I even took my first flight, and it was extremely nerve-wracking. I had my mom and my stepdad with me, and I was so nervous about my chair getting damaged that I really couldn't focus on anything else. I had reached out to a couple of wheelchair users online and told them about what I was struggling with, and my friend Jessie had said, you can't worry about something that hasn't happened yet. It's not going to be good for your mental health, and there's no point. You have to go in to the situation thinking that everything's going to be okay, and if it's not, handle it when it happens. And kind of switching that mindset really helped right off the bat. Yes, I was still nervous that my chair was going to get damaged or that something could happen, but I also accepted that things were out of my control and I just had to deal with it if it arose. Now, when I started traveling, I wasn't really confident at first, like I said. It took a few trips, not only with friends or family, but even a couple by myself to really figure out what worked best for me and how I could feel confident. When looking at the challenges that I face when flying frequently, the biggest challenge I think is the inconsistency with staff from airport to airport when it comes to the process of everything. I am based in Charlotte, and so in my Charlotte airport, I have a certain process that I'm very used to. The flight attendants give me some pre-flight information, and I'm always ready to go. Now, that doesn't happen at every airport. Staff is all trained differently. They have different ideas on how things should go. And sometimes even the TSA agents aren't trained the same. Now, I travel with TSA PreCheck, and with that, a wheelchair user should only have to get their hands and wheelchair swabbed, a quick chair pat down, and they usually look under the chair just to make sure there's nothing inconspicuous under there. And there's been plenty of times throughout my last 4 years of traveling that I'll go to an airport and they try to give me a full body pat down. And I have to advocate and say, no, sir, or no, ma'am, but I have pre-check, and pre-check means hands and chair swab only. And that can be a little bit tricky if what they're trained on and what you're used to don't line up. And so I always try to treat them with kindness and to say, hey, please just take the time to talk to your supervisor about the way that this should go. When it comes to communication gaps, like I said, that's usually between different airports and different staff. Different airlines have different ways of tagging chairs and tracking mobility devices, but even then, sometimes it's inconsistent from airport to airport to airport. For example, one airline has these cute little pink tags that you can keep on your wheelchair and travel with and reuse, but sometimes they actually have you fill out an extra piece of white paperwork with all of your wheelchair information and have you attach that to the back of the chair too. Some cities do that and some cities don't. I'm never sure. I just kind of ask, do you need the white paperwork or do you not need the white paperwork? And kind of go from there. Now, when looking at what makes a travel day stressful or smooth, it really comes down to preparation. There's going to be things that happen that are out of our control, weather we cannot control, plane issues we can't control if the plane breaks down, or we can't control if the flight attendants or the pilots time out because we've sat on the tarmac too long. Those are things we can't really control, but we can control how we approach those situations. So I always have extra supplies in my carry-on bag, extra medical stuff, extra snacks, extra work, a book to read. I always try to prepare myself in that kind of sense. making sure that if I am going to be stuck in the airport a little bit longer, or if my flight was delayed, that I have something to keep me productively busy, and to make sure I have enough medical supplies and medication if I am delayed. The next part is communication. If you want smooth travel, you have to treat other people with kindness. If your flight is delayed or if the plane is grounded for certain reasons, please don't take that out on the flight attendants or other airline staff. That's out of their control too, and they just have a job to do. And so if you can treat the people around you with kindness and just be open and just be like, hey, this is kind of what I'm dealing with. How can you help me? Or what are our options? That is also going to make things smoother. If you approach airport staff with an attitude or anxiety, you're most likely going to be greeted with the same thing. And so just take the time to breathe, catch your emotions, and just treat the people the same way that you would want to be treated. When looking at systems or habits that help me feel more independent, the first thing that comes to mind is luggage. Now, I prefer to travel with a large duffel bag that I can toss on my lap and roll around independently. That's not going to be the case for everyone. So there is actually some luggage that is created specifically for wheelchair users that can attach directly to your chair. You can just pull it along. It moves with you really seamlessly. And some people really just like a regular old suitcase that they can push or strap to the front of them. There's a lot of different ways to be flexible, but for me personally, I like the duffel bag. I like being able to pick it up, put it on my lap. I don't have to worry about pushing my wheelchair with one hand or pushing a luggage with the other. For me, that's what works best for me. I also like to add all of my travel plans into my calendar ahead of time. So with me traveling for work, there's always a lot of details. Venues for the event, times for breaking down or setting up our table, where my hotel is going to be. And I like to add all of that into my calendar in one spot so I can always find it. I put my hotel reservation numbers in there. I put down my flight numbers in there. And so when I land in a new city and it's time to book a cab, I'm not struggling to find the address. Or if I'm checking into a hotel, I'm not struggling to search through my emails to dig out that confirmation number. So having all of those small details really quickly accessible really helps me stay on top of things. Now, like I've mentioned, advocacy in airports and hotels is super duper important. Let them know what works for you. Let them know what doesn't work for you. So for me personally, in an airport situation, I don't need staff to escort me to my gate or to luggage claim, any of that. I really like doing it by myself. And so after I check in, I let them know, hey, I'm good. I'll meet your staff at the gate check-in when it's time to board the plane. When it comes to Ubers or public transportation, I try to do as much by myself as possible. I try to make sure that the rideshare vehicle that is coming is something that I can independently transfer into. Now, there is going to be situations where the rideshare vehicles are limited, and I might need a little bit of help. And so I don't force help on the driver. I just ask. I'm like, hey, I might need a little bit of a boost, or I might need you to hold my wheelchair. Is that going to be okay? But in the most part, I really try to do as much work as possible by myself to make it easier for them. If it wasn't for being able to travel the way I have, I wouldn't have even known how to join the workforce. Being able to travel with Jesse for our consulting jobs before I got involved with AMF gave me the knowledge, the strength, and the courage that I needed to attack traveling full time. And if it wasn't for all the options of the wheelchair closets or these amazing mobility tags on our wheelchairs while we travel, or having the option of having a wheelchair accessible vehicle when booking through Uber or Lyft, that has made such a huge difference. It's given me confidence to get back in the workforce. It makes me feel safe to go out alone. And it also gives me the courage to show other people, hey, you can do this too. You know, if I can handle doing all these things, there's no reason why we can't figure out how to make your travel experience just as seamless and just as accessible. Some of the advice that I would give to a newly injured individual or someone who is just starting to travel who has a disability: don't be scared. Don't dwell on the what ifs. Don't dwell on what could happen. Try to prepare yourself as best as you can. Pack the extra supplies, do the research, call the airlines ahead of time. If you just do a little bit of prep work and a little bit of research, I guarantee you're going to just kind of get those anxiety and nerves down a little bit. You're going to feel a little bit more confident. And then if something does happen, you're going to be prepared. Please don't let the fear of what could happen stop you from experiencing all the things that you can do. I think people get so hung up on the barriers that they forget how capable they really are. And that's what I like to highlight as someone who travels full-time for work, is that anything is possible as long as you have the right mindset for it. So you're probably wondering, why do I continue to travel, even when it's hard? I travel for my community. I work for my community. I struggle for my community. The whole reason I wanted to get back into the workforce full-time was to give myself the independence that I deserve. And along with that, to show others in my situation or similar situations that they can do that as well. We all have the capability to push ourselves, to work a little bit harder, to try new things, and to really excel in whatever our passion is. For me, living on disability wasn't the answer. I really wanted a full, well-rounded life, and working and traveling is giving me that. And I feel so blessed to be able to share that with my community. So even though it gets hard, and even though some days are really challenging, I'm going to continue to push through those days to show not only myself that I can do it, but to show my community that they can do it as well. Traveling full-time has taught me that I am a lot more resilient than I thought. I can handle a lot challenging transfers, I can lift heavier things, and I can be independent without needing someone else with me. And that is really, really powerful. Traveling not only gave me the freedom of going back to work and having the finances I needed to get off a disability, but it also gave me the confidence I needed to be the most independent wheelchair user I could be. Travel has challenged me, strengthened me, and shaped my career in ways that I never expected. Mobility isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about access and opportunity. If you're navigating travel as a wheelchair user, I see you. And if you're working in transportation, your role matters more than you know. Thank you so much for listening to my personal story about travel, and thank you for joining me on this episode of Beyond Mobility. Stay safe, stay empowered, and keep moving.